Wasabi Wallet. Unfairly private.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. I think something's playing twice. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, guys, welcome to the show. Oh, I see what's happening. I'm an idiot. I was listening to myself via my own YouTube window, which was open on the side. Well, it's a good time to say that this is live and anything can happen. So I'll just defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
This is why I use that clip. Because shit like that can happen. Anyways, guys, welcome to the show. Very excited. We got a stacked panel today. We are all feeling bullish. I hope you are too. It's a great Friday. I'm very excited. If you're watching here, smash that like button, give this a share, and subscribe if you haven't already. All of that stuff really helps, and it helps get more eyeballs in the room. As always, I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
All right, before we bring in our panel, let's take a look at where we are in the market right now. I'm over here on the bitbo.io dashboard. We are sitting at $32,617 per coin. A single US dollar will pick you up 3,066 sats. Stack them while you can. 89.36% of all Bitcoin have been mined. And in terms of fees, still super low, friends. So if you're looking to move stuff around, get stuff in cold storage, maybe open some Lightning channels, maybe swap some Bitcoin and stick around with Liquid a little bit. I've been talking about a bunch of different things this week. So not a bad time to do any of those things. 4 sats per byte will get you into the next block. If you're willing to wait any amount of time, effectively, 1 sat per byte will do you. That is not a forever thing, friends. So take advantage of low fees while you can and get some Lightning going on at the very least if you're moving sats on a regular basis. In terms of giving shout outs, of course, shout out to sponsors of the show, LEDN .io. You can use your Bitcoin for a variety of different things. In particular, if you're in a pinch, you got cash flow issues, and you need to get your hands on dollars, but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin because, of course, that's a taxable event, and maybe you're worried about having to buy back in at a higher price. You could, of course, use their Bitcoin-backed loans where you deposit Bitcoin, get dollars in your bank account within 24 hours, and when you pay back those dollars, you get back the same amount of sats, which is the important number, of course. They do have their Bitcoin and USDC savings accounts, interest rates of up to 9.5% annually, paid monthly, and their B2X offering. If you're feeling mega bullish, links are down below. If you're stacking sats in Canada, Bitbuy is an easy option to do so. Really easy web interface, dedicated app you can get on your phone. And after your first $250 purchase, you can get $20 for free. Of course, I do live on Bitcoin. One of the ways that helps me do this is Bitrefill. You can pick up any gift card your little heart desires in just about any country. And you can pay on-chain with Bitcoin or Lightning. And you do earn sats back as you shop. So check them out. Of course, I've just redone a new tutorial video for the Keystone, formerly known as the Kobo Vault. Still the same air-gapped Bitcoin hardware wallet solution as always. I love this thing. You know, dedicated Bitcoin-only firmware, all kinds of good stuff here, interoperable with a ton of my favorite wallets. Check them out. And finally, if you're backing up any important Bitcoin wallet, of course, get it in steel, especially if there's a meaningful amount of funds on it. Paper might not cut it. Water damage, fire damage, accidentally discarding it, all those horrible things. I've heard them all. So just be careful and conscious of what you're doing there. Anyways, I'm going to get this off my screen and start bringing in my guests. I know that 3 of the 4 of them are here. I think Camila just dropped out, but we've got Dr. Jeff Ross. We've got Eric Yakes. We've got Nico over from Simply Bitcoin. And eventually we will have Camila Campton joining us. I think she just had connectivity issues. But gentlemen, and eventually ladies, welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here. Just really quick, I'll go down the line and let you guys introduce yourselves, what you do. So I'll pass it off to Jeff first. Dude, can you let everybody know who you are, what you do?
Yeah, hey everybody, Jeff Ross. I'm a physician who then opened a registered investment advisory, and I manage a hedge fund that I founded back in 2014. I've been doing both careers for 8 years now, getting tired, having a lot of fun. I got orange pilled into Bitcoin about 2019, but I first dabbled in about 2016. I was one of those altcoin people that dabbled, gave away all of my Bitcoin to buy garbage, traded it away, and got hit in 2018 with a huge tax bill. And so I learned a lot. It was fantastic. So I love teaching people. So I'm trying to teach people to not do what I do. Focus on Bitcoin. Your life will be so much better. And I'm just having a ball doing that. The Bitcoin community is awesome, and I'm just psyched to be here. So thanks for having me, Ben.
Awesome, dude. Glad you're here. Let's toss down the line to Nico. Introduce yourself, man.
What's up, guys? I'm Nico. I'm the host of Simply Bitcoin, and I'm the CEO of Bitvault Mining. We host ASICs. Before you asked, we're completely full right now, but hopefully in a couple months we'll have more space.
Awesome. And Eric, can you let people know who you are, what you do?
Oh yeah, and Jeff, that story is so cool, man. I think what you're doing is awesome.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, so I came out of the traditional finance world. I used to work in corporate restructuring, moved to a private equity firm for a little bit, followed Bitcoin the entire way, and eventually it was like, it's time to jump into this industry. I authored the book, The Seventh Property, Bitcoin and the Monetary Revolution. There it is. It's pretty. I designed it myself.
It is.
And yeah, and currently I'm unemployed and I live in my mom's basement, so buy my book.
Dude, you're a Bitcoiner, bro.
Yeah, you're doing it right, man.
Yeah. I think the only way you can level up is to get rid of that chair there. That's about it. So, gentlemen, welcome. I am just checking on Camila here, but I'm very excited to have you on. And if her connectivity issues are fixed, then of course we will have her on momentarily. But in the meantime, I'm going to kick us off with my reason this week for being bullish. Now, for those of you that are new to the show, that have never seen this before, very, very simple here. We go by the 3 R's. Number 1 is somebody gives a reason for being bullish. Number 2, all of us as a group riff on that reason. And number 3, we rotate to the next person. So I'm going to kick us off here. I've got a reason for being bullish. And my reason is actually, I got a couple books sitting in front of me here, but I've been working my way through this one just the past couple of days, which is The Block Size War, if you can see it. The Block Size War by Jonathan Beer. And this details the block size war of that kind of came to its conclusion in late 2017, and it goes through everything that happened throughout the course of arguing for how to scale Bitcoin. So it's for me, I got to watch the block size war kind of play out. I got to see all the arguments. I got to see the community basically like headbutting and the difficulty in trying to figure out what was going to happen. And so at the time, it was, to some, it seemed very, very scary. And it was scary at the time. But looking back at it now, looking back through the history of what happened and how Bitcoin came out of this and the way that it came out of this is just, I have a newfound appreciation for the bullet that we dodged in and around that time. Because what could have happened is we could have set the precedent that a few large companies and a handful of miners basically could have taken control of the protocol and asserted that they are the ones that get to decide what Bitcoin is. And even if in doing so, they were doing it through altruism and they genuinely wanted the best for Bitcoin, it would then establish that these are the people whose doors you knock on when you want changes. And that would have been the perfect way for government to swoop in and say, hey, we don't like this. This is how we end it or co-opt it. Luckily, that is not what happened. What happened is a bunch of individuals and a handful of people that just wrote some adversarial, very game theory thinking like code effectively coerced an entire, like the top 50 companies and 80% of the hash to back down in the last 24 hours of this change that would have ousted the entire core development team and replaced it with a single guy. And I've never seen anything quite like it. I've never seen, in what world, in what industry would you ever see a ragtag group of people with $100, $200 computers sitting on their bookshelves behind them be able to stand up to 80% of an entire industry and tell them to go fuck themselves? Because that's exactly what we did. And it is beautiful. And I love Bitcoin for it. And if you aren't familiar with this history and you don't know about it, then you need to go and you need to read this book, The Block Size War, because looking back, I can't believe how scary it actually was, because we were like this close to fucking up a global sound money and we didn't. And I've got to say, we fucking nailed it. And not to diminish any of the issues that we have today, we still have to kind of like keep our heads down and keep working. But man, if I was bullish then, I'm bullish as fuck now. So I'm going to open it up to everybody and let people, any input on that you want to put in. Eric, I see you're like ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, what you were saying resonated with me quite a bit. And I think that when I read that book and, for perspective, when I kind of was hopping into this industry in like the 2016, 2017 era, there were a lot of people that are like, leaders of the industry who I think are incredibly brilliant people, but I thought would be speaking across a few different dimensions that they may not be the best versed in. And when I read The Block Size War, I gained an appreciation for a lot of that mentality and how people are defensive and why that is valuable in the long run and how that benefited the ecosystem throughout history, and providing that like context behind why people act certain ways they do. It's like, okay, it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I'm trying to remember exactly when people kind of, you all kind of gave your, and by the way, everybody that's watching, big welcome to Camila Campton. Really quick before we get other thoughts, Camila, can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Camila Campton. I work with Swamp Bitcoin doing their social media and other side projects. I feel like I'm probably a baby compared to all of you. Like I always say that every time I come in these panels because you guys are completely brilliant. So I learned so much here, but just because I'm a baby in the space doesn't mean I'm not bullish. So super glad to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And I'll continue to open up the topic at hand to anybody. I don't know. Nico? Yeah, go ahead.
Those were some scary days, my friend. Those are some scary days. Bitcoin Cash hash rate overcame Bitcoins twice. Okay. Just for like a momentary moment. Right. But as a miner, right, you have to understand I'm looking at the hash rate because that tells me what is the strongest chain. And man, I was just so scared. And I was scared for the same exact, and I think you said it so well, Ben, for the same reasons, right? It's like, man, you saw the Bitcoin network potentially being co-opted by essentially one company that created, I mean, it was multiple companies, but it was Bitmain essentially and Jihan that really, man. Well, they're gonna have fun staying poor now. I'm trying to keep all the bad words in, but yeah, man, it was some dark days. But you know what? I'm gonna say that the old age adage, right? What doesn't kill Bitcoin makes it stronger, right? And I think that looking back, Ben, and maybe you disagree, maybe you agree with me. I think that it was necessary for Bitcoin to go through that type of test, right? I think it was inevitability and it was necessary, right? And it highlights the importance, right, of running your own node, because at the end of the day, right, running your own node is what gives you the power to vote, right, what type of Bitcoin software you want to run or not, right? So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I think you're right also in saying that it was necessary. I think that it's necessary that Bitcoin goes through every possible attack vector because that's what adds to its anti-fragility. So, if a particular attack hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen because it has to, so that we know that it's anti-fragile to it. So, it's a matter of time, but every negative thing You know, it's the meme. Actually, this is good for Bitcoin, and it is.
You know, I'll jump in here. I came here with a unique perspective. So back in 2016, 2017, I got into this space, and at the time I called it the crypto space. I was one of those people because I didn't know much about Bitcoin. I didn't really know much about anything other than risk-adjusted return. So I came in because of Sharpe ratios and got into that space. So I sort of watched the blockchain wars as a passive observer, as an outsider. And from an investment perspective, I took a sort of diversified approach. I bought a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Bcash, and a little bit of Litecoin and all that stupid stuff. Because I'm like, I don't know what's going to win, and I don't really care, because I was just in it from, you know, to make a little bit of money as an investor. So it wasn't until the crash in 2018 and the wreckage and the carnage and the tax bills, and then going through 2019, I came back to it, totally went down the rabbit hole. Read Saifedean's book, listened to a lot of Preston Pish about it. And that's kind of because I came from the value investing background. So that's when I started to learn, like, man, this thing is like the real deal. This is a world-changing technology. And I regret now that I wasn't here back then in 2017 to fight for you guys and fight with you guys. But because what I see now, I mean, Bitcoin, literally, it's world-changing technology. It's of the people, by the people, for the people, decentralized, secure. It's literally 10x better than the traditional financial system, what we have right now. And it's just going to come and eat everybody's lunch. And it's fantastic. And so I'm so thankful for what happened. I'm thankful that the plebs are able to run their own node, to spend $250 and do that. I don't do that yet, but I will when I retire from medicine in a couple months. But it's the most beautiful design, and it's so simple and it's revolutionary. So yeah, I'm all about it. It's fantastic.
100%. Now, Camila, you kind of, I guess you would have missed a lot of the infighting and stuff that were happening back then as well. You wouldn't have seen it, but you've been around since, and you've seen some of the people that I guess lived through it and experienced it. What's your kind of takeaway from seeing all that? Like, what are your feelings in and around what happened there and the splits with Bitcoin Cash? Is there anything that kind of stands out to you as lessons learned?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is you have to take it back to Satoshi sometimes, like keep it simple, take it back. And it's like, you don't think that he would have thought about all of this. Like, Ben, you mentioned they think that they were doing something that was good for Bitcoin. It's like, really? Was it really good for Bitcoin? Because I feel like if it was good for Bitcoin, it would have been designed like that from the get-go. You know, so it's just like kind of taking a humble approach that, no, you're not here to fix Bitcoin. You know, you're here to contribute and to make it better, not to fix it. It was never broken. It's never been broken. So it's just like kind of taking that approach. And it's funny because with the people that watched the B Word conference this week, when Elon was talking about, oh, like, you know, the block size, making it bigger, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, do your research, like history, you know, like read that book that Ben has so that you can have like some insight and can actually give valuable input. I'm not going to pretend to know as much as I know, like you guys do here. I'm not going to just like open my mouth and just say stupid things, because that's what he tends to do. It's like, just take a step back, read, do your research, and then come and bring something to the table that's meaningful. Like everything that he said, it's like, oh, that's funny. Like, it's not like we've never thought about that before, because people have, and it's been happening for years. Is take a step back and actually take that approach of why didn't it work that one time.
Yeah. And this is kind of like again, a major reason for the toxicity of a lot of Bitcoiners is we've heard these arguments a million times before in years prior. And so, you know, to tag onto that meme you mentioned, Camila, I just heard about Bitcoin, I'm here to fix it. Right. Like it's such an asinine approach, like to kick open the door and be like, you know what we need? Bigger blocks and faster transactions. Like, fuck off, man. Come on, really? This is what you're coming with? So yeah, absolutely. Like to have people think that a person that stepped out of the limelight after creating this purposely to ensure the decentralization and lack of figureheads would need a centralized group of people to come and decide and install their own single developer and single point of failure to something like this is just so ass backwards that again, I'm so glad we dodged this bullet. I'm going to say it one more time before I move on from this topic, but everybody go read The Block Size War, and fuck, while I'm at it, go read the Seventh Property, because it's fucking awesome. So with that, I'm gonna cap off that topic. I'm gonna keep us rolling. Everybody that's watching right now, smash that like button, give this a share, keep the comments coming. I'm going to start pulling up more of them now that I'm done my ramble. But I'm going to toss it to Jeff, man, and I'm going to ask you, what has you feeling bullish this week? Take it away. Oh, you're muted.
All right, got to unmute myself. So I'm bullish for a lot of reasons, but I think the main one that I picked is the news that JP Morgan is now making Bitcoin investments available to their clients. So before it was just their high net worth clients, and now it's just for the regular clients. That's awesome, and it's, to me, this is what's going on. It's sort of the natural evolution of an asset class. Obviously, I come from the world of finance, so it's really fun to watch the infrastructure being built out in this in real time, and seeing a new asset class and all the rails and everything coming up and coming to speed. So the irony of it is what I love, though. Jamie Dimon, as you guys probably know, back in 2017, he basically just came out saying he hates Bitcoin. He doesn't want anything to do with it. It's a scam. If he finds any of his employees trading Bitcoin, they're fired. And that's how he left it, you know. And then Bitcoin crashed, and so he kind of felt vindicated, I think, and people probably thought he was correct. I love it that now they're one of the first major banks to come out and to support Bitcoin for their clients. And they said the reason is because all of their clients want it. They're all asking for it. They know it's a new asset class. They want to invest in it. They don't want to be left out. And so it's just so ironic that JP Morgan, who is arguably the most powerful banker in the world, is ushering in his own demise. I think he's going to be replaced. The whole banking system as we know it today, it will someday be replaced. And I think as soon as maybe 10 years from now, these traditional banks will exist in a completely different form, or they won't exist at all. And the completely different form will be that they're going to custody Bitcoin, and they're going to allow their clients to get into Bitcoin, whether they like it or not. And they mostly hate it. So I'm stoked about that. That's a good sign.
I do love that. I do love the total 180. I mean, he probably still hates it, but it's just like the market has basically said, you're wrong. We want this. Give it to us or fail. So it's beautiful. Anyways, Nico, you were going to jump in, or Eric?
You got it, Nico.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I mean, yeah, dude, look, this goes back to Bitcoin game theory, right? Like it's just very simple, right? And look, I think Michael Saylor says it best, right? The price of when you get into Bitcoin is when you deserve it most, right? And you know, Jamie Dimon doesn't have a choice, right? And we've seen this happen time and time and time again, right? You resist the honey badger, but eventually, you know, because of the game theory, right, you're going to have to offer it to your clients, or your clients are just going to leave, right? It's that simple. Like, he doesn't have a choice. I'm sure that he's biting his tongue the entire time and like saying it with like, I can't believe we have to do this. He didn't have a choice. He could have been intelligent. He could have put his ego aside and started not only offering it to his clients, but actually started to buy Bitcoin 4 years ago, right? Actually look into the technology, and the company that I think is JP Morgan, right, would have benefited from it, right? But they're never going to do that because it's a bank, you know, but it is what it is, man. And I agree with Dr. Ross. Banks are done. You know, they're not, you know, retail banks, as we know. Cash App does everything, right? You know, except for, you know, large wires. I'm sure it's just a matter of time, right? Retail banks are dead, you know, and then after that, it's central banks. That's the last boss, you know. Let's see what happens then.
Large wires are just on-chain transactions, man.
Exactly. All right. What is a wire transfer? Dude, I had to send one the other day, and man, that's archaic. It's archaic.
It's just funny because it's like they're gonna die anyways. It's like if you don't participate in Bitcoin, you're gonna die. If you do participate in Bitcoin, you're participating in your own death. So
right.
It's just a matter of time.
It's a catch-22 for them. They can't. They have no choice. They have to do it. I was talking about that earlier. You know, the other big thing with banks is central banks are going to be coming out with the central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. they're going to be bypassing traditional banks with those things and putting money directly into savings accounts of citizens. And so that's another functionality that traditional banks are losing. So they're getting bombarded by Bitcoin on this side, and then central banks are bombarding them from the other side. So they can either embrace Bitcoin and find a new way to profit from that, or they can leave. And a lot of them are going to go out of business because of this. It's going to be very interesting time.
Yeah, it's really similar to the same reason that Kodak didn't go into digital cameras. They are forced to cannibalize their revenue, and that's just not an easy decision that any short-term thinking executive would want to make. And because of that, they're kind of, it's a question of whether or not they believe in the long-term viability to the same degree that people like us do. And I can't imagine that they don't. And that's why they're making strides this direction, but it is not economically, it doesn't make much sense for them to be going that direction. You might as well just kind of, keep the boat going as long as you can and fight against it and keep your profit margins where they're at, as opposed to investing in all this new infrastructure.
I love the dynamic, Jeff, that you were getting at with it coming from both sides, because central banks largely just dismissed this early on, and regular kind of retail people and cypherpunk kind of techie nerds and then people that basically had no other way to transact were the ones that kind of gravitated towards it first, and banks were the ones kind of in the middle that they felt threatened from a transactional perspective, but also from like a risk perspective, because they effectively regulated themselves into a corner where they put so many arduous regulations around themselves. They built this moat to keep everybody else out, and then they realized, well, we've screwed ourselves, because in order to utilize a lot of these things, we didn't want competition, but now the competition is outside of our realm and our moat is keeping us in. Mm-hmm. We can't get out to the open world to actually participate. So it's funny to see, but now they're basically, again, being bombarded from both sides, because more or less traditional banking as an idea is effectively done. They've got to totally change their business model. And then with the CBDC idea, central banks are able to offer like direct accounts with people. Now that obviously comes with this whole other Pandora's box of nightmares that come along with it. But effectively, it does bypass regular traditional banking. And so what can traditional banking do? The only thing that they can do is offer something that central banks never will offer, which is Bitcoin. Yeah. And so it's like, maybe temporarily they can get in on the custody game with Bitcoin, or maybe they start to go down a route like Unchained Capital or like Casa, where they are a part custodian, but that massively digs into the revenue of being able to fractional reserve the shit out of everything that they have. Mm-hmm. So it's a lose-lose for them.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
I love it. Any final thoughts on this topic as to the bending the knee of JP Morgan from anybody?
What was the name of the CEO again?
Jamie Dimon.
Jamie Dimon, have fun staying poor, bro.
I think my favorite when people use "have fun staying poor" is when we say it to excessively rich people, because it's such a beautiful, it's like have fun staying intellectually poor is what I think we're really eventually they'll really be poor, but for now.
Like Peter Schiff's response to all that's hilarious. He's like, I'm rich, man. I'm still rich.
Oh, Mr. Schiff. I love it. Cool. Well, let's wrap this topic. Great one. Everybody that's in here, smash that like button, give this a share, keep those channel or those chats coming. Somebody is making fun of my Canadian accent. Mr. Perrin, would you please be kind enough to say oot and a boot? Thanks. There you go. Let's keep it rolling. Okay, cool. Eric, it's on to you, man. What has you feeling bullish this week? Take it away.
So I was thinking a little bit about this earlier today, and I was going to talk about the what's going on with central banking and how I think that there's a lot of telltale signs that the system is very close to, falling off the edge of a cliff with the amount of debt, with the amount of wealth inequality. I think that, you can see it, and people are starting to understand it better, and people are starting to get angry about it. But honestly, something kind of occurred to me when I was thinking about coming out of this podcast, and it's more just kind of like my personal story of coming into Bitcoin and what I was working in the private equity industry, and I kind of had this plan since college to pursue a career that direction, and then with Bitcoin in the background the whole time, it was like, over a matter of a few months, there was like one day I woke up and it kind of dawned on me, and I was just like, this is actually what I think I should be doing. And when I jumped into this industry, I wasn't totally certain of what I was going to do. I didn't plan on writing a book. I just knew that, I was following an intuition and what I thought was right. And the first step was like, I want to get deep into this. I want to understand all these questions that I had in my mind of, I want to know these aspects of Bitcoin a little bit better so that I can defend those against kind of the people that I was working with in my traditional finance career. And that kind of opened me up into all these different areas that I read into. And going through that process, I was like, okay, I don't think that there is like a holistic source that totally like synthesizes all these aspects of Bitcoin. And going through that process of putting that all together, it was just me pursuing exactly what I wanted to do. And I just think that kind of message is really important, because I published my book in June, and I met Ben at the Bitcoin Miami conference, and here I am on his podcast. And it's getting traction in the Bitcoin community so much faster than I ever expected it would. I thought it'd be 2 to 3 years out before like somebody who's legitimate would take a look at it. And here we are today, and it's moving quickly. I'm on bestseller lists. And what I want to tell everybody is I think the reason I'm so bullish on Bitcoin is the fact that I was able to do that is you can't do that anywhere else. And the way that people will, assess people based on merit, they'll take the time to look at content, and if something has merit, they will immediately bring you up, and they will, get you involved in all these different ways. And, coming from the world that I came from, that was the reason I wasn't thinking about any of this going the way that it was, because it's like, oh, well, no, you got to have a degree. You have to work at this job. You got to go this person, or your dad's got to be the CEO of the company. And Bitcoin, doesn't have a CEO for anybody's dad to be. So it's going through that whole process has made me realize that like this community and the incentives that it provides for people, it's an unstoppable force.
I 100% agree. And dude, I've got to say, I love the point that you brought up where people look at not who you are and your credentials, but the merit of what you're saying, because that's why we're seeing within Bitcoin specifically, the good ideas bubble to the top, because that's what people gravitate towards. And Bitcoiners are just as quick to swat down shit takes, right?
Yep.
We celebrate the ideas, not the people. And so when you see somebody say something intelligent and have some good takes, awesome. Thumbs up. When you see that same person have a shit take, nobody has a problem being like, fuck out of here with that. Like we don't agree with that. And so again, like, I've got to say, I thank you very much for coming up and saying hey in Miami, because I thoroughly enjoyed the book. As I was reading, it was funny because I was posting some shots of like some of the quotes and everything in there, and I was at like a chapter or two in, and you're like, well, chapters 3 through 5 are going to be they're going to be tougher to get through because they're pretty dense. Those were like my favorite parts of the book, because it illuminated a lot about the traditional financial system and central banks that really I was familiar with, but not on such a deep level. And I know that like you can only get through so much in a book, but it covered a lot of stuff and clarified a lot of things that I wasn't certain of before. And so I really appreciated that. And yeah, man, you said it yourself. If your ideas have merit, then they are able to circulate quickly without the need for a piece of paper saying that you're worth people's time. So kudos to you for dropping the book and having it proliferate. But I'll let the panel chime in on Bitcoin's tendency to reward good ideas.
And 100%, I'll jump in there, Eric, with what you're saying, and Ben, what you were just saying too. Like, I love this community in the way that they are just fiercely loyal to the truth. They don't care who it comes from, where it comes from. If it's a good idea, they'll celebrate it. If you're the second richest man in the world, like Elon Musk, and you don't know what you're talking about, they will just devour you, and go after you. And if somebody comes in and tries to shill some alternative coin that, is the next Bitcoin or whatever, you will get devoured by the cyber hornets and the plebs will take you down. And I love that. I love that. And I honestly think it's like truth and love, you know, like people are doing this because they want to protect this amazing thing that we have. It's so simple. It's so beautiful. It's so world changing. You don't need any of that other stuff. It's all just a distraction. Like if you have a great idea and you have a simple truth, you want to share it with the world and let as many people know about it. And if people try to detract from that, they're going down. And so that's what's super fun about this community. It gets seen as toxic by outsiders. If you're one of the people shilling a bad idea, you're going to get, you know, lambasted. That's too bad. That's how the community works. But once you come around and you're a part of the community, there's love and hugs all over the place. So it's a great community.
Absolutely. I have a funny story I just want to share. So the last meetup I was in Denver, amazing community. It's just, you get like this rush when you're just around Bitcoiners and you're like, you know, we're all in the same essence, mindset, like soul, heart, everything. It's just amazing. And it was raining pretty hard that night once the meetup was done, and there was a fellow Bitcoiner that needed a ride home. So we gave him a ride home, and his way of giving thanks to my husband and I was giving us your book, The Seventh Property.
Yes, that's so awesome.
That makes me feel great.
Yeah,
Wow.
and my husband and I were like, this, like, who does that? You know, who gives thanks? But that's like one of the most amazing ways to give thanks, is like just give amazing information to someone else, because it's really going to enlighten them on their Bitcoin journey, wherever it is. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm always going to remember that car ride.
Wow, that just made my day.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I love hearing stuff like that. That's great. And also Tone Vase says hi. I guess he's in the chat there. Maybe it's real Tone Vase. I don't know. But either way, hi, real or imaginary Tone.
So I'm going to give the example of, you know, Eric was telling you like how it's so different. Like, you know, you go from the fiat, you know, the fiat standard, I guess, and it's the credentials are so important. And then you go into Bitcoin and it's, we don't care about your credentials. We care about what you have to say. And I'll give my example, my actual, like what I lived through with Eric. I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw a passage of his book. And mind you, okay, I know what proof of work is. I know how it works. I've been mining for 5 years now, right? Like I know how it works, right? But I have never seen it articulated in such a way like Eric said it in his book, man. It was the perfect passage. And I was like, and I told my fellows, like, we have to get this guy on the show, you know? And then it just happened to be the same week that Eric comes on BTC session. So he came on yesterday. And we just, again, so it was literally an example of what Eric was talking about, right? Like you see something, you don't care who that person is, right? You just like, look, that guy has signal. He's speaking the truth. He seems very interesting. Let's talk to him, you know? So, and the whole community's like that, man. And again, you know, and this has nothing to do, like you could have, you know, a 7-year reputation in Bitcoin, but as soon as you start going down that shitcoining path, we don't care who you are. We don't care how long you've been here. We don't care how many followers you have. We don't care whatever. We're going to call you out on that, you know, and that's very unique to Bitcoin, because in the fiat world, you know, you have 7 years on your belt, you know, perhaps they'll cover it up for you or something, you know, so it's very unique to Bitcoin. And I think it just makes the space a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Thanks,
it's a beautiful, it is beautiful because it's, I mean, the whole basis of Bitcoin is truth, right? We built a mechanism to get truth of where people are allocating their time and value and I guess human capacity. And, you know, then that I guess through osmosis kind of it makes its way out to everything, right? It makes its way out to our day-to-day interactions with people. We just want truth in those interactions, and that's what we seek, and we push back against anything that goes against the truth. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it. Awesome. Well, does anybody have further thoughts on kind of the big, I guess the overall topic would be the Bitcoiner community and our reactions to different stimuli, we'll put it.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who's supported me so far. I really appreciate it.
You have a great book, man. Like that's what it is.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's great. Again, everybody that wants to check it out, you know, I've got Eric's Twitter. Actually, I've got all the panelists in the show notes. You can follow them all on Twitter and find all their info there. So we're going to keep it rolling. And we are, oh, by the way, we just went over 33K. We're at 33,250. I see it in the chat there, by the way. Thanks, Kristen. Always keeping us all in the know here. Cool. So we're going to keep it rolling here. Of course, if you're in the chat, if you're watching live, smash that like button, give this a share. Let's get even more eyeballs in the room. We're going to toss it down the line to Miss Camila Campton. I would love to hear what has you bullish this week.
It's so funny that you brought up the price, because what had me really bullish was going under 30K for me. I don't know. It was just like my mind, instead of panicking, I guess I've trained myself to be like, yes, this is like how Matt says, a stacker's paradise. This is a time to like kind of like step back and breathe. Especially because with my personal story, like when I came into Bitcoin, the price was around 9,000, and then that December is like when everything just started going up, and up, and it was like kind of like a roller coaster. Like, man, this is insane. And then when the price went down and it's kind of sideways, this is like the time for us as Bitcoiners, as a community, to just build as much as we can, as quickly as possible, because we know that the bull run is going to continue and a lot more people are going to start coming in. So I feel like we really have to prepare for those moments, to have like the best content available, the best tools, the best resources for those new people that come in. Someone has to build it, right? And it's like we want to keep these people here as bullish as possible all the time. And the only way we can do that is through education. So it's like, when I know you've been 5 years, Ben, on doing your show, it's like that takes a lot of time, you know, but then it's like newcomers come in and they have like this full library of videos, tutorials of valuable information that they can look into. So I just want to encourage anyone out there that, you know, if you want to build something, do something for Bitcoin, like this is the time to do it. This is the time to build, even if you're not going to get as many eyeballs because it's not a bull run, or the price isn't skyrocketing. That's not the whole point of it. The whole point is to set a solid foundation for those people that are coming. So that had me bullish.
I love that point around utilizing the downswings to put your head down and work and get shit done, because this is kind of like the cycle of Bitcoin. There's when there's a bull run and shit's going crazy, there's a lot of money that just gets thrown around. And then when eventually that kind of siphons away and all of the noise goes away, and you're left with the people that actually are building real solutions, real things. And so all that ends up getting built when nobody's looking, right? What you see during the bull runs is the result of the bear market, is the result of the work done during that time. We're seeing this massive amount of innovation in Lightning right now. That shit was all done in like 2018, 2019, 2020. That's when everything was being built, when all those apps were being put out, when all that infrastructure was being built. And now you can just fucking use it. There's an entire country coming on board, and they're leapfrogging the base layer because of all the work that was done when people were working, when nobody gave a shit. And 100%. And that's actually kind of was my first big boon for the channel. Was I made a bunch of shit in 2016 when nobody cared. It took me like a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months to, I think it was at least a few months to get like 50 or 100 subscribers. And it took a long time. Nobody cared. And then luckily I just week to week, okay, a video every week on I'll instruct on something. And then all of a sudden 2017 comes around. Everybody's like, oh, there's like a ton of videos on all this stuff. Somebody's been doing this for the past year and a half. Okay, cool. I've got everything in front of me. That's the only reason that it did well, because it was done when nobody cared, so that when people did care, it would be there. And so I think Bitcoiners have their work cut out for them when it's times like this, when it's not all over the headlines constantly, or when people think that that everything's going to implode. It's time to work. So I know all of you guys on the panel have done work when it's been not super exciting to do so. So maybe you guys can chime in on what it's like, the boom and bust cycle of being busy.
I just want to add to what Camila had to say, and Ben, your channel trailer summarizes this so well. Okay, you don't have to be a coder, right, to get involved in Bitcoin. Okay, I don't know how to write. I barely know how to write, read. I like, if you watch whatever, you know that I mispronounce words all the time, right? So, but what am I good at, right? Making videos, and I know how to talk, right? So find your specialty. Ben, of course, it's very similar, right? He's very good at editing, very good at production. It's amazing, right? I look up to BCC Sessions. I wish I live up to that one day. And that's the whole point of Bitcoin. You know, you have to find what you're good at and contribute back, just give back, whatever it is, right? And yeah, what Camila was saying, you know, cheaper sats, you know, it's just cheaper sats. No one cares. And it's just so funny because it's only in Bitcoin that the price drops 50%. And all of us are just like, yeah, let's buy more. You know, if it was any other asset, like people would be like, no, we got to sell. We got to get out of here. So yeah, man, very, very bullish.
Piggyback on what you guys are saying 100% about building when times are down, because the good days will come. And so it's just the best to get your head down and work hard when nobody cares. And then, you know, from an investment perspective, DCAing, dollar cost average, this is like a dream come true that Bitcoin is so cheap right now. And so if you can just get that long-term view in mind of where this network is going and where this price will someday go and the market cap and all that stuff, these are dream prices right now. And if you can just automatically buy and quit looking at, you know, I post charts every day on Twitter, ironically, about, you know, technical kind of stuff, garbage. And none of that matters. And it's just a total distraction. Like, what you want is just as much Bitcoin as you can get, because this thing is going and it's not going to stop. And if we can get as much as we can at these low levels, while we're at 30,000, maybe it drops down to 20,000. Fantastic. Then you get even more. You get 50% more than it did today. That's awesome. But it's definitely not going to be stopped. This thing's already reached escape velocity. So it's just a matter of getting your piece now and continuing to do your proof of work and setting yourself up for the future, your family, generations to come based on the purchases you're making today.
Yeah, I agree. And it's definitely a lot easier during a bear market to focus on building and, you know, not waste your time shit posting on Twitter or anything like that. But also, one key point to call out is bull markets are the best time to raise financing so that you can do that building during the bear market. So take advantage of that right now. I think this is like the number one invested space in right now. I think it's like nobody else is thinking about anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see that, right? We see there's, like we were saying, there's so much money sloshing around during the bull markets, and a lot of people don't know where to throw money because, and a lot of people have excess money because they just lucked out with timing. And so it's just getting tossed around everywhere. It's like a free for all. But then again, when shit hits the fan, whatever's real actually stays. And yeah, you're right. It's a good time if you're building legitimate things. And I guess if you're building total bullshit and not producing anything, I suppose it's also a good time for funding. But yeah, I'm bullish on Bitcoiners utilizing the excitement this year to build what will help us scale and continue to grow throughout the next cycle. So yeah, absolutely.
Hey, can I just say one more thing on this point? Just you brought this up and going off what you were saying, Eric. You know, I look across all the different asset classes right now, from real estate to stocks to bonds, commodities, and then into Bitcoin. All of those other sectors are really expensive right now. They're highly overvalued, historically overvalued. And so I would encourage anybody who's watching this right now, whenever you're watching it, to consider if you've made large profits in those different sectors, in stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities, whatever, consider putting some of that, at least some of your gains, into Bitcoin. Think of Bitcoin as your long-term savings, because at some point, those other things, the valuations have to correct and they're going to come down. They're going to get devalued, and Bitcoin is really undervalued right now. I think most of us would agree with that, kind of based on where it should be in the long run. So I think this is not individual investment advice, but it's a fantastic time to consider putting at least some of those profits into Bitcoin.
Yeah. I think we'd all echo that. And And again, part of the reason for that overvaluation is a lack of places to conservatively place your money without taking a hit, right? If you can't hold dollars, because we know that 30% of US dollars have been created in the last calendar year, and if you can't hold bonds because you're making sweet fuck all over a decade, what do? Right.
Yeah.
So you pump it into a bunch of equities that are historically high, or you buy the soundest money that the world has ever known that is in the process of being monetized. I know which one I picked.
Yeah, we've effectively monetized all these asset classes, and that's why they're so born out of proportion. And when once things take a turn, you're going to want to be into the sector that hasn't been monetized fully yet, and that's why you want to make that sector rotation that Jeff's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, solid tip from somebody on the internet. This guy on the internet says, never trust a guy on the internet. So thank you for that. I'm going to keep this rolling. We have one more reason for being bullish, but in the meantime, everybody in the chat, keep those messages coming. Smash that like button. Give this a share. Sub if you haven't already. Let's get even more eyeballs in the room. And we'll toss it down the line to my friend Nico. What has you feeling bullish this week, man?
Man, the hash rate continues to recover. And what happened this year, and most people did not notice, but it was just as important in Bitcoin's history as the fork wars of 2017. Okay, Bitcoin survived a nation state attack this year, right? 50% of the hash rate dropped off the network, okay? We had the largest difficulty adjustment ever, 27.9%, right? And what's crazy, because I was worried, I was like, okay, how long is the hash rate going to take to recover, right? But again, it goes back to the incentive model of Bitcoin, right? Right now, all around the world, you're having a decentralized migration of miners fleeing out of China and relocating as fast as possible, because every second they take longer, it's costing them Satoshis, right? So they're going to Kazakhstan, they're going to Texas, they're fleeing, they're trying to find a place. That's why I told you in the beginning, it's like, I'm full right now, right? Man, it's beautiful. And it's beautiful because it's all happening without anybody telling anyone what to do. It's just the incentive, right? So it's just people, they just want more Satoshis. They want more Bitcoin. So this whole migration is happening. Like, it's amazing, dude. It's amazing to witness this. And most importantly, this week, you're starting to see the hash rate recover, right? And the hash rate's super important. In my opinion, maybe your opinion's different, Ben, but I see it as the value proposition of Bitcoin, right? That's the amount of computational power that it's going to take to attack the network, right? So the hash rate, I'm looking at that and I see it recover after China's banning mining, and I'm like, how could you not be bullish, man? How could you not be bullish, right? We're going to be talking about this just as much as we talked about the fork wars of 2017. We're going to be talking about China banning Bitcoin in 2021 and how that made Bitcoin significantly stronger. And now the majority of the hash rate isn't concentrated in one country anymore. So the China FUD is dead.
Yeah, 100%. Like the whole China thing. It's funny because you watch the narrative in the news, and at first it was like, a lot of, majority of mining in China is bad. And then it was China banned Bitcoin mining. That's bad. And so it was just like this total dichotomy of, it didn't make sense, just conflicting narratives. But honestly, like a further decentralization of hash rate around the globe is fantastic. And initially, I think there were some worries of like, is this what the beginning of an actual state level 51% attack looks like? But now it's very much starting to look like, no, they just turned that shit off, and now an entire industry is moving outside of their borders. And I think that's going to be one of the largest nation state fuck ups in human history, to have them effectively have the industry that is becoming the global reserve asset, the most pristine collateral asset, the global digital store of value. They had the majority of that within their borders in terms of that entire industry, and they basically just said, nah, go somewhere else. And they're going everywhere else. imagine making that mistake because you couldn't handle not being in complete control. It's wild. But I'll let others chime in here.
And I'll jump in here because I think that's a great point. And like Nico, you're talking about how 4 years we're going to be looking back at this moment. I think 10 to 20 years from now, we're going to be able to look back and literally pinpoint that event as the day where China stopped their ascent and their rise to global domination. You know, they were number 2 behind the US and clearly going to be kind of number 1 based on some metrics that people look at from an economic point of view. They're going to start to descend now, directly related to this. I truly believe that because they're basically exporting their wealth by banishing Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin among their citizens. And Bitcoin is antithetical to Chinese communism. It's antithetical to centralized control because it's perfectly decentralized. And so they had to come to a choice. Look, we either have a future with Bitcoin that we can't control, or we get it out of our country and we go forward with our CBDC and our surveillance and our Orwellian, atmosphere that we're trying to create here. So I feel terrible for Chinese citizens, but this is great news for the rest of the world. It's a punch in the face to people who own Bitcoin in the short term, but it's fantastic for the long term. So I'm super, super bullish about that. That's like the best thing that could have ever happened to Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if like the block size war was kind of like this endogenous battle that made Bitcoin more anti-fragile, then this is kind of like one of the big exogenous battles. Like in my book, I pointed out miner concentration and that's already dated. And it's awesome. It's a beautiful thing to watch happen. And a lot of it, just comes down to the incentives that they have. And I think we'll see more and more of it. But yeah, the communist regimes would rather have a very small pie than a free large pie. And we're going to see that happening more and more. And, hopefully wealth gets built up in enough competing nations to where, we can, exogenously change that at some point in the future.
Dude, I loved reading that part of the book. I had a smile ear to ear as you were talking about concentration of mining as like a possible attack vector for Bitcoin. I was like, oh, that shit's gone now. It's great.
They could have done it too. That's the thing. They could have.
Right.
I mean,
it would off the table. Yeah,
it would have been difficult, but technically, they could have co-opted, all the miners within the country, right? But now that's off the table, and it's going to cost them trillions. They're going to regret it.
That's like the literal definition of have fun staying poor. Like,
yeah, you're right.
It is.
Yeah, it's and I mean, and we won't get to see all of it at once, right? We won't get to see that hash rate all come it's a big process to move those physical machines across physical borders, find places to plug them in with an electricity cost that makes sense. And so and I mean, Nico, you can speak more to this than I can, but what factors are there for, let's say you're sitting in rural China and all of a sudden they're like, no, lights off, get out. What do you have to do then?
So we had that crash, that price crash, and kind of everybody's like, where did that come from? That was the hash rate, my friend. That was miners selling, right? So they could pay for that relocation, right? From what, I've been paying attention to this and stuff, and man, the scramble and the speed of which this is happening, right? Because you have to understand every second is costing Satoshis, right? I don't think it's ever been seen before in human history. These amount of computers literally being sent all around the world all at once. And again, no one is in charge. No one is telling these people what to do. It's individuals making independent decisions, right? And they're all trying to find a place to put their miners, right? It's absolutely surreal. I'm telling you that they're going to write a book about this, just like the Fork Wars book. They're going to write a book about this, but I'm not going to be the one writing it because I can't write for to save my life.
To piggyback on what you're saying, Nico, though, you're right on. It's Bitcoin is the world's only truly free market. And so we're watching true free market forces in action. And when it dumped over 50%, there wasn't any talk among Congress to bail us out. Like, oh, poor Bitcoiners, they lost 50% of their money. Poor them, I mean, and now it's going to, Bitcoin miners are going to where they're treated best. So if that's Kazakhstan or North America, Texas, Wyoming, whatever state they want to go to, that's how free market capitalism works. Capitalism always gets a bad name because the U.S., people think the U.S. stock market is capitalism. It is nothing like capitalism. It's totally socialist. And so I love seeing this. This is the first time anyone has ever seen a truly free capitalistic market.
I love
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the, I guess the thesis of the sovereign individual, that jurisdictional arbitrage. It's kind of amazing to see that not only does this network allow for people to utilize jurisdictional arbitrage and go where they're treated best, but the network itself utilizes jurisdictional arbitrage and goes where it's treated best. It's really poetic.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's sad the amount of people out there right now that are currently conflating the concept of capitalism with this like highly centralized monetary policy that we're implementing. It isn't capitalism at all. And there's like, millions of millennials and Gen Z running around thinking capitalism's bad just because they don't understand the infrastructure that's undermining all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Camila.
I just wanted to say, you see the younger generation, social media and stuff, like they're actually cheering for socialism because they think that that's better than capitalism, but it's not. It's like we have to really re-educate everyone with what's going on. Like that, I think as a Bitcoiner, that's our mission. Not to educate people, but to actually re-educate them, because everything that's in their head is completely flawed. It's messed up.
It's the MMT generation. It's the Stephanie Kelton generation. This is what people are learning, and how would they know any different? Because they're told that the system we have is capitalism, and of course they're going to look at that and say, "Well, this is shit," because the wealth gap is growing, because the monetary base grows, and a greater percentage of that goes to the higher ups, and we see the Cantillon effect, right? We don't see people are in the lower echelons of society at all benefited by our perverted monetary system. We see them harmed. The people that deal in cash the most and have zero assets are the ones that get screwed the hardest. And they're told this is capitalism. It's not at all.
Yeah, and they need to get mad. That's what needs to happen. They need to get really mad.
Yeah. And my worry is that they get mad, and as it's currently playing out, that they direct it in towards the wrong side of the spectrum. They direct it towards a system that they think they're in, which is literally the system they're cheering on in disguise, that they're currently living under.
That's right. Like, keep fighting. We have to keep fighting, man. And look, again, this isn't a kinetic war. I think personally, I think kinetic wars between nation states are a thing of the past since the invention of nuclear bombs. But we're living through an information war. And the way you fight information war is likes, tweets, videos, content. Like, it's literally, that's how you fight it, right? It's not a battle to kill people. It's a battle to win over people's minds, right? And that's essentially what we're going through right now. And again, it's really important to at least stay on top of the narrative, right? Because the other side, and when I say the other side, I mean central bank digital currencies, right? Because I think that's going to be the final boss battle, to be honest with you. Man, they have everything. Okay, they have the mainstream media on their side. They have, the political connections, right? And they're going to use all those tools, right, to savagely, right, attack Bitcoin, right? You see the Fed and the ECB change their narrative towards Bitcoin, right? Now it's a failed payment system, apparently, right? El Salvador would like to disagree with you, but whatever. And also, they've both said the same thing, right? It says Bitcoin is only useful for anonymous transactions, right? So that's telling me their battle plans. That's telling me, where we're going to clash in a couple of years. And I think it's just important that we stay on top of that. We keep creating content. We keep, just saying stuff on Twitter and just fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
They don't. Go ahead, Camila.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. We've been slaves of the banks, essentially. We're slaves of the banks, the Federal Reserve, all of those people that are on top. And that's who the real enemy is. And like you say, Nico, they have all the power. But what we have to realize is that we have even more power than them. We just have to get our hands dirty and get to work, even if we get sacrificed, right? Because we're the cult, we're in a cult, and we're the crazy people, and we're completely out of our minds. It doesn't matter. We just have to keep going because
I think she got it. Oh, there you are. No, it was
There you are.
like half
Yeah.
a second of what you said. And I love the cult comment because there was somebody in the chat earlier that said the cults are, or what was it? It was something along the lines of the only thing that makes it it's not a cult if you win or something like that.
Yeah. All religions started as cults.
Yeah.
What type of cult makes you
Yeah.
massively wealthy in the process? Just
That's exactly the point I was going to bring up. I mean, there is a misinformation war going on, but there's also going to be a very stark contrast in the future with the amount of wealth accumulation that's going to come out of the sector. And, you know, for the same reason that like a lot of people I knew in college, like guys would be like, I want to go into commercial real estate. And they'd be like, why? Well, they know a lot of rich people in commercial real estate. And that same effect is going to be happening in Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's going to be incredibly difficult, especially with a long history of all of these figureheads for central banks saying that it's a scam, it's garbage, everybody's going to lose all their money, and it's bad for the environment, all of these different things. As all of that proves to be untrue, and you can actively look back, whatever the next narrative that they have is, to be able to pull up all of the headlines that were completely incorrect over the past decade and say, well, if all of these things were totally off base, what are the chances that the new current narrative is also incorrect? I'd say pretty high, but hey, we'll see.
I'm just glad we're on the side of truth. Like, that's what I'm happy about. We're on the side of truth, so we're going to be fine. We won.
Yeah. And we constantly check ourselves, right? We can, like right here in the comments, I gut check on a regular basis. Did I join a cult? No, I'm following the smartest minds. And again, you'll get people on the opposite side. There's that Skinner meme from Simpsons. It's like, am I that out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be the Steve Hankeys of the world that are looking at Bitcoin decades out when it's millions of dollars per coin and you don't even use the dollar as a unit of account anymore. And he'll be saying, no, it's the Bitcoiners who are wrong. And he'll be sad yelling at a cloud, I guess. It'll be.
that dude he's a fanatical statist. And once you figure out who the statists are, you can see, because they're very intelligent, but then they're just like, what is wrong with you? Like, how could you possibly think what you think and say what you say? I'm just spewing falsehoods and FUD. And I don't have to get into that right now, but I tend to butt heads with him on Twitter because I just cannot stand the stuff he says. I mean, he's just clearly lying for the to maintain the status quo of the state. It just drives me insane.
Twitter is super nice though, because what they do is that they warn you with the blue check mark, right? And they let you know who's who, right? You know, it's pretty accurate. I would give it like a 99% accuracy rate on who's the status and who's the bought out mainstream media person. Like, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, well said.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think I'm going to try and round it out here. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go down the line one last time to each person. And since we're kind of on the topic of truth and information and trying to find good sources for information, maybe what I'll do is I'll say one last time, let people know where they can find you, but also maybe give them a recommendation of a website or a video or a channel or a book or anything that you think would give valuable information to anybody watching right now. And so not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to toss to you first, Jeff. Let people know where they can find you and something you think people should check out.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me, Ben. This was super fun. You guys are awesome to hang out with. This is a good time. Good way to spend a Friday evening. You guys can find me on Twitter. That's where I spend most of my free time if I have any. I'm at BillShireCap. And I tweet about Bitcoin all the time. Since I fell down the rabbit hole, I don't tweet about anything else because I don't find anything else interesting, which is funny. As far as resources, I know this thing gets promoted all the time, but it's really what pushed me down the rabbit hole and helped me to finally understand things is Saifedean's book, The Bitcoin Standard. If you're interested in the history of money and why Bitcoin is the superior form of money that is someday going to replace the current money system that we have right now, that's a great place to start. It's a great read. And that's where I push people who have crossed a certain threshold and want to learn more and go deep with Bitcoin.
Awesome. And Eric, how about yourself? Where can people find you, and anything you might maybe want to mention that people should maybe check out?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter a lot. So Eric, ERIC, last name YAKES. I think it's linked. And I have a website, yakes.io. And actually, I have a page on that website that's just a list of every resource that I found really valuable. So you can just go to that page and kind of flip through it. I think what's important is jumping into this space, there's definitely a lot of sources that are consolidated and they're great sources of information, but I would challenge you to look for sources kind of outside of what you find within the Bitcoin Twitter world. I tried to link some of that on my page, but you want to know both sides of every argument. You can't sell things to people without understanding what they're thinking. So like doing the research of every side of things and not just coming up with ways to counteract your own arguments for things. I think that's pretty important. So yeah, I got a bunch of sources listed in there, but that's kind of my advice. Awesome. Oh yeah, and buy my book.
Yes, do that. You should. And Camila, how about you? Tell people where they can find you and whatever you want to point them towards.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on my Twitter. My handle is right there at Camila Campton. And if I could share something, I'm going to share the Spanish show that I have with Javier with Crypto Bastardo. I could talk about a lot of bullish things, and I'm always going to be super bullish on the Hispanic and Latin community Spanish speakers because, you know, this is an amazing opportunity for them, especially coming from Colombia and having people from Venezuela and just like sharing stories. So our show is every Monday on the Swan channel. And we usually have guests come in, talk about different topics, security, what mining is, and just trying to educate people and build that community because we're coming for everyone. I'm just saying, it's just a matter of time.
That's awesome. Awesome. I love it. And finally, Nico, let people know where they can find you and whatever information you want to point them to.
Hi guys, you can find me on Twitter at BitVolt7. If you're interested in finding more Bitcoin content, definitely go check out our YouTube channel. It's called Simply Bitcoin. We try to cover Bitcoin news and shitcoin fails from the perspective of two plebs. And of course, I recommend this to everybody because this is what orange pilled me. You don't have to spend $1. You could find these lectures on YouTube. The original Andreas Antonopoulos lectures from many years ago, originally when I really got orange pilled in 2016, I would listen to those lectures on repeat every single day. And the one my favorite one is the global banking cartel, right? And it really, really, the way he says it, man, it's just phenomenal. I can't recommend it enough. And of course, Ben, thank you so much for having me on your show. BTC Sessions is a Bitcoin YouTube legend.
Well, I'm glad you were here, man. I'm glad all of you guys were here. Thank you for taking the time to spend a Friday evening with me. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to drop all your audio and video, but as always, you guys are always welcome back to the show anytime. So thank you guys very much. And to those that are watching live in the chat, thank you so much for being here, for joining me here on Friday. It's always the best part of my week. Of course, smash like, subscribe, and share. All of those things help the show so much. They help get this content in front of more eyeballs. Now, if you want to help with the show in another way, you can always hit up the previously mentioned sponsors down below. That was LEDN, Bitbuy, Bitrefill, Keystone, and privacypros.io. All of those are in the show notes, along with the Twitter links to all our guests. And if you really liked what you saw, you can always drop over to my Strike page to drop a Bitcoin tip. You type in any amount you like, you hit the tip button, and you will be greeted with a Lightning invoice, or if you click to the right, a regular Bitcoin QR code. And that's that. Again, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day or evening wherever you may be. And I will see you next time for your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.